everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to get going putting our 1945 two-end loader tractor back together. Here's the first job. It sat all night with the all the drain plugs out of it, so she's completely drained down to the last drip. So now we got all that. There was a lot of guck in them draining into these old jugs and buckets here. Ick. There was some icky stuff in this thing. Now, were this a running tractor and the pump was working and everything, something that some fellas will do is before they take everything apart, they'll drain all the oil out of it like we did, and then put the plugs back in and put 5 gallons of kerosene in it and go, rip around the yard a few times, and that'll theoretically flush it all out and you can drain it again. You could do that if you want, but I'm confident we got the worst of it out, and whatever sludge and guck is sitting in the bottom of it will probably remain stuck in the bottom of it. For today's project, we're going to get the pump installed. We got a good used pump from the shed. I just cleaned it up. It's in the solvent tank. It's just drying. We'll stick the PTO shaft in it and make sure it turns nice, but not expecting any trouble with that. We're going to put the pump up, fix up the lift cover, get it on, get the control valve hooked back up to it. We're going to reseal the PTO shaft, get it installed, and get all our 3-point linkage back on. I won't be able to actually test it and adjust it until the tractor is back up and running. But for now, we can do everything else. I've already gone ahead and cleaned all the gasket surface that I can get standing up. So now I got to get on the creeper and clean the bottom of it where the pump goes up in. You want to be careful with these things. Wear a mask. Do what you got to do. Do your own research. Do your own precautions. These gaskets, some of them are very old, and they're likely filled with asbestos, right? You do not want to get mixed up with that stuff. It's very bad. So, like I said, do your research. Take your own precautions. Just keep yourself safe. And I did eventually shame myself into reaching in there with a paint stirrer and scooping out as much sludge as I can. There's a real, right here underneath the PTO shifter housing at the front of this cavity, there's a real low spot where the sludge likes to accumulate. So I scooped as much of it out of there as I could, including here's a hunk of the old pump. Oh, boy. Here's our hydraulic pump cleaned up. What we can do if we want is stick a PTO shaft in there and see if it wants to turn nicely. So let's give her a turn here. And we just want to see that the yokes go back and forth. You can even hear the poppy noises. Oh, look, I missed a piece of crud. It's pretty much impossible to get it all, but we'll get as much as we can. So you can hear that pump is working nicely. I also got this bore down here. That's where our control valve goes. You got to make sure that's clean. Your control valve is clean, and you just jiggle it in there. It's a really precise fit. You got to get it in there, and it should have just a little drag on it. That's perfect. So we'll have no trouble from that. I also went around, cleaned this gasket surface. I went around on the tractor, and all of these holes are 7/16 course, so I just put a tap in a cordless drill, ran it on low speed with the clutch set on easy brake, so we don't want to break the tap in it, right? And I tapped out all the holes. These are the 9 bolts for the hydraulic pump. I've got them all cleaned up, so we can go ahead and get this thing ready to go up. Something to note when you put one of these up, the end, these two and those two are open holes into the gear case. So you want to make sure you put some sealant on the threads of these ones. These ones are okay, the sides, and 3 on this side, they go into blind holes, no problem. Lift cover repair kit. I would highly recommend any of you that have a 9N, an 8N, an old gray Ferguson for the like $12 or whatever that one of these things costs, always keep one in stock, because invariably you'll go to do a little job and have some kind of problem and you'll have to pop the lift cover off or whatever, and everything you need to put it back together is in here. It's a good spare part to keep around. Now we could crawl under and put this thing up. It kind of goes up in front first, like that, and then tilts up, and get a couple of bolts started in it, and then we should be okay. I siliconed the gasket to the pump, so it stays in position. Not a lot of silicone, just a little skin, just enough to hold it in spot. And then I put grease on this side of it, so if we have to slide it around a bit, we could slide it around without the fear of ripping the gasket. Plus, hopefully it won't stick to the belly of the tractor. So if we ever have to take it down again, we're not under there scraping and chiseling at an old gasket. All right, here we go. Here we go. This should be super exciting. Let's get this pump up. Oh, okay. It's not as bad as trying to lift a freaking cast iron Chrysler 4-speed up, but oh, look at that. The bloody control valve fell out. There we go. Okay, the control valve is back in. So it kind of goes up in jiggle, 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 jiggle. Okay, just like that. We got her in. Okay. Now I'll just get one bolt in. Oops. Make sure it's not going to fall on my noggin. There we go. We did it, people. Okay, now we'll get the other side bolts in. And then I'll put some sealant on the end ones and we'll put them in, because remember, they go right into the oil. And we don't want a leak. Or, you know, any worse of a leak than they normally have. Yeah, it's a little silicone. I mean, they are pretty good at sealing up just by the fact that we've got a steel bolt torquing into an aluminum housing here. And it's kind of self-sealing, right? But we'll still just put a little sealant on the threads. All right, now we're going to torque these things up. I'm going to torque them to 60 foot-pounds. And these two here I always do first, this corner, because they are on either side of the oil port. And I want that corner scrunched down first. Once we got that done, we'll kind of go in a crisscross pattern around and catch the rest of them. And there she is home. I've left the plug in the bottom of it out because sometimes some of them they're all just a tiny bit different. Some of them I can reach through here and get the linkage connected to the control valve. Sometimes it's easier to work through the drain plug hole in the bottom. So we'll just leave the drain plug out for now. I did put the drain plugs back in the transmission and the rear end, just to cut down on the dripping. Now we'll build up our new lift cover. You can see once I got the old one apart, once I started messing with it, a great big chunk come out of it. There's a big, huge hole in the top of it. I still don't know how they managed to do that. Here's our lift cover. I had it in the barn. It's from an English-built Ferguson, but it'll work just fine on this here Ford. You can tell it's a Ferguson one because it's got some strange looking numbers on it. And you'll see here, it's got two test ports. I'm not sure the 9N ones, even the early ones had that. The Ferguson had a test port on either side, connected by a common gallery right there. So it's handy if you were using this thing to run a loader. You could run a hose out of each side rather than have to come out with a T and cross the hose over. Kind of neat. I don't know if they planned it that way or if that's just a product of them drilling right through it to make a gallery, right? I don't know. Anyway, this is the rock shaft. So the rock shaft runs in here in the lift cover, and in each side there's a bronze bushing like this. Now you'll see here, because it's got a bigger spline in the middle for the bell crank. That's my word of the day, bell crank. When you push the rock shaft out, it pushes one of these bushings out. So just make sure, it'll sometimes leave a nasty burr around the inside of it here. Just get a file and touch that and make sure that your bushing will go over the shaft again without getting stuck, right? This has actually got a little bit of a bell around the outside. I got it dressed down. Anyway, I'll do that. So we can go ahead and put this baby together now. So now we can put this together. I apologize, I'm working on the floor like a caveman, but I've got 3 tractors apart in here right now, and my bench is kind of cluttered. I start working on one, and when I need parts, I order them, and while I wait, I start working on another one. So we got 3 on the go right now. Oh well, lots of tractor videos for you guys anyway. So what we're going to find out is that when we go to put this together, it's got a double or a dummy spline, because everything's got to be synchronized, right? Or timed, however you want to look at it. So I've put a mark here on the bell crank where the dummy spline is, and we'll try and line that up as we put it together. I've greased up that bronze bushing in there, so this thing should slide together nicely. And well, hopefully I'll see you when I got it in. There we go. The spline's a little bit snug in there, but you know, not too bad. I just tapped it in with a brass drift, and we've got it about centered. So now we can go ahead and get our bronze bushing in this side. I'll grease the inside and outside of it to so that it hopefully goes in nice and easy, and we'll just carefully tap on it. They deform pretty easy, right? Okay, once we got that all in, we just make sure that it moves freely. We're all good. Now we got to get the lift cylinder ready. The piston is all the way down there. Sometimes you can flip it over and just tap it on a block of wood and get it out, or you can do what we'll do. We'll just shoot some compressed air in it, and it should come flying out. Okay, well, we can see here it's not been updated. It's still got the 3 steel rings on it. We'll get this thing in the solvent tank and get it cleaned up. So our lift piston is the old 3 steel ring one. And the first ring here and the second ring are, well, that one's a little tight, but this one is downright seized right here at this end. That's probably not going to do a lot of sealing the way it is. The inside of the bore actually didn't look too bad, so I think we could save that. We'll give it a little going over with the dingle ball home. And then what we're going to do with this, what they started doing with these things, I think with the NAA tractor starting in 1953, they changed this from the 3 steel rings to an O-ring and a backup washer. And you can buy just that piston if you want. And the lift cover repair kit, you can see them in there, actually comes with the O-ring and the backup washer. So what we're going to do here, I have one brand new NAA style piston in the house. I'm going to go grab it and see if we can cut on the lathe, put this thing on the lathe and cut the larger groove for the O-ring on it. And I'd like to change it up to the O-ring style. These work okay, the 3-ring ones, if you're running the old heavy goop gear oil in them. But now, if you want to use the universal tractor fluid that everybody likes to use, it works better in the winter, that's for sure. But it'll sneak past these steel rings a lot easier than the old 80-90 goop oil, or I guess it's 80 weight mineral oil they wanted us to run in. Most guys run 80-90 in them now. I've used, despite the horror stories about yellow metal, I've used the modern GL5 80W90 in all kinds of them. I even got, with no ill effect, despite the Chicken Little stuff that you'll read about it on the internet. I even got kicked off I got kicked out of the Ferguson group on on Facebook for suggesting to some guy that it would be okay to put GL5 in the belly of his Ferguson. Anyway, whatever. That's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, so let's have a look at this and see what we can do. Well, here we go. I modified the piston on the lathe. I couldn't find my new one that I know I have somewhere to use as an example. So we just winged it. I'm not sure. The groove may be a little bit shallow. We'll see. If I can get this thing to go down in there, we'll just have to try it. No way was this thing going to go in. So I put it in the lathe and took a little bit more off. We'll see if it's happier now. Well, it went in and I was able to push it down to the bottom of the bore, so I assume hydraulic pressure ought to be able to push it back. So now we can put the draft control linkage in. I've cleaned up this. That's the threaded adjuster or the push rod. But you can see here it's got a bad bend in it. So we're going to have to take this over to the press and get that bend out of it. I've also removed the hydraulic ram push rod, or we call it the dog bone, out of here just to make it easier to work on. Now we can install the lift cylinder. I've got all the bolts ready for it. You can see these two holes. These are the guide holes for the linkage. So we'll put a little grease on them. It does get lubricated by splash once it's running, but we want to give it a fighting chance to start, right? And then we can we'll torque those bolts up to 65. Now you see these here, these are stoppers. They're like a safety. So if the piston comes too far back and the piston starts coming out of its bore, it contacts these, which pushes on that and pulls the control valve out to make the lift go back down so you don't blow out your piston. Now that we've got it together this far, we can put it back on. We've got a new gasket with a couple of guide studs, and we can just lower it down. The cherry picker's over there, and I've got such a mess in here. I don't think I could get the cherry picker to our location. So I'm just going to lift it on. That's why I'm putting it on only half dressed. It doesn't have the arms or the quadrant or anything on it. It'll be easy to lift like this. And once it's on there, we get all the bolts just kind of started to hold it in position. And before we tighten stuff down, we're just going to make sure that the rock shaft is free and that the linkage inside is free and not bound up on anything. Now we can go ahead, we'll run these bolts down and tighten them to 60 foot-pounds. And just like the pump down below, we're going to tighten or torque these two bolts first because they're on either side of the hydraulic port. And there's just a paper gasket there. I have actually seen some guys cut the hole in the paper gasket a little larger and insert an O-ring in there when they've got one that leaks. Because these old castings, you know, they kind of move around a little bit over time, and you could start having a leak where you didn't have a leak before. So anyway, the O-ring trick does work, but we're just going to go with the gasket for now. Next on is going to be the backing plate and the spring seat. Now the first thing we can see here is the spring seat part of this is all rotted away and wrecked, so we need to replace that. And then, worse, you see the back side where the end of the control rod or push rod, whatever you want to call it, has eaten away almost 1/4 inch into this thing. That is no good. That is going to make it impossible to get a good adjustment on this thing. This has to be completely flat. So what you can do with this, you've got a couple of choices. Number one, you could weld it up and grind it down so it's new again. You could just knock the spring seat off it and flip the thing around. That'd work. You could also, I guess, just get a piece of 1/4 inch plate and make a new one, right? I found one over in the barn that had a good spring seat and not too much wear. So I just knocked it apart, flipped it around so we've got a clean surface to start with again on the back side. And we should be good to go. I'm going to put a little silicone sealer on here because any place that we can keep water from getting into this thing, we want to do that. So I'll put a little silicone on the back of this. We'll get it stuck on there and get it bolted down. Next thing on is this guy, which I guess this is the actual spring seat. Not this. That's maybe the spring retainer, we could call it. So this guy goes on over the push rod here, or the control rod, and it's got a seal in the back of it here. The original one is a felt seal that seals this against this face and against the shaft. I thought I had one around here, but I don't. But I found this nice foam one, and I could squeeze it in there, and it seems like it's going to work fine. So we're going to get this anti-seized up, and we'll get our seal, popped in the back of that and get it on. Now we can slide the spring over and get the yoke started on. It's really important that this thread be clean, so you can do your adjustment. That's really nice, that one. There. That's about as far as we're going to go. We're just going to leave it kind of sloppy like that for now, and it'll get tightened up properly when we do our final adjustment. I got the rocker and everything back on. These pins, I didn't put the cotter pins in them yet because we'll have to pull these pins back out when we do our final adjustment. But for now, it's there and we won't lose everything. Now what we're going to do is go ahead. We're going to put the arms on. And man, we're getting there, aren't we? So here's our arms. They are the same left and right, or at least they start their lives the same left and right. But over the years, if you work them hard, you can see here, they just start to get a little, they start to bend down a little bit. So that's all right. We found one because I had to cut, when I took the old lift cover apart, I had to cut one off. But that's okay. I kind of think here we've got one Ford arm and one Ferguson arm, but it doesn't matter. They go on just the same. So bear in mind, we've got our double or dummy spline here. That's what lines them up. So we can get these things on. And then it's got a plate that holds it on the end with two 7/16 fine bolts and a locking tab. We'll get that all done and I'll be right back. The arms are held on with these plates and bolts. And so what I do, the one on this side, I just pull it down till it bottoms out. That's good, torque the bolts. But the ones on this side, you actually don't pull it down. The end of the shaft is probably around here somewhere. And you want to just take it in until you've got just a little drag on it there. That'll help keep these things against this housing and keep it kind of sealed up. And then we're going to stake them by flipping over the ends of the lock plates. And that's how we leave it. Our original quadrant, I got a little carried away trying to knock the arms off the old lift cover with the sledgehammer, and it got kind of wasted. That's bad. Bad on me. Anyway, I found this one in the barn. It's a little bit different, you know. I kind of think this one may be off an English Ferguson. I can't say with any certainty that's the case, but that's my guess. Or an earlier 2N. 9Ns had cast aluminum or cast iron ones as far as I know. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The most important thing we saved from this was the Woodruff key, where the handle goes on. That one's going to be hot. That's the one we just took apart. So we'll get all this stuff cleaned up, and we can go ahead and put this thing together. I looked outside. My 41 9N had one just like this on it. So this is from a 9N. The Fergusons actually all had the plain ones like that. So we got the shaft all cleaned up. You want that to turn nice and free. We're going to take it back out now and grease it. When it's in the tractor, that's how it sits upright like that. And it gets lubricated in the tractor by the odd drip of splash that's supposed to go in that hole. Oh, what's the chances of that? Next, we'll put the friction disc over it. Then the Woodruff key. And then we can slide our handle on. Okay, so we put the quadrant assembly in with a new gasket that came in our lift cover repair kit. And you just want to make sure that the cam, whatever you want to call this, the operating shaft, gets behind the linkage, that upright linkage that we put in. So it's easy to check. You just pull back on this and see that? You'll feel it moving the linkage. So we're good. We'll adjust all this up later. And then what we want to do is just tighten this nut up until we start getting a little drag on the friction disc here. So it feels okay. Again, we'll do the final adjustment on that later. We also have to, because of the old loader here, well, I had to put a new knob on that. Knob's always missing. I just made it out of some junk I found. Because of the loader, we're going to heat this up here and bend it in a little bit. It's always hit the loader. That's no good. So we'll fix that while we're at it. Now I got to put this outer strap on. It's hard to see, but between reaching down in here and reaching up through the drain plug there, I was able to get the control valve snapped back into the linkage. And I've tested it by moving the quadrant handle back and forth while pulling on that back there. And everything seems to work. So we're going to go ahead now and get the PTO shaft fixed up and get it put in. And we can put in this plug down here too. So if you remember, our PTO shaft, there's a big chunk of the housing busted off. So we're not going to use that. We grabbed this one out of the barn. And when I first look at it, I see the shaft is riding pretty deep in the housing. And then when I look at the back side of it, I see that, yeah, there's a big gap there between the bearing stopper and the bearing. So I kind of wonder if there's a snap ring or something missing inside of it. We're going to just give it a couple of taps on there and see if it comes out. I got the shaft out and there's definitely something fishy with it. I'll show you in a minute. But we got to get the rest of it out. So this snap ring is in the back here and it holds the bearing in. So we'll flip it back over now and knock the bearing out and see if the snap ring, there should be a snap ring on the other side of this bearing. We'll see if it's there or not. Well, I didn't see any snap ring in there. Maybe I'm mistaken. But you can see here we've got an original leather seal. That's why you see seals CR, Chicago Rawhide. That's why they're called Chicago Rawhide because, well, that's what the seals used to be made out of. Rawhide. Jeez. So, I'll show you here. See how banged up this shaft is here? It looks almost like there should be a snap ring or something there, but the bearing sits down here, so I'm not too sure. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take the other one apart and see what it looks like. We may just use the shaft from that one and the housing from this one. Now I figured it out. This one was missing the bearing retainer. That holds the bearing and gives a place for the seal to run. And it was missing on this one. But I think we're going to push it all off and use it on this one because you can see on this shaft, half the spline is worn away. There's been a lot of bush hogging done with this one. So this shaft is garbage. So we will we'll just put this in the press and push this apart. And we'll use this. We'll put it all back together on the other shaft. The bearing retainer / wear sleeve for the seal was in really bad shape once I got it off. So I'm making a new one rather than wait. You know, it would take 2 or 3 days for one to show up. We'll just make a new one. So here's our new retainer all finished. Fits there perfectly. So we'll go to the press now, press this all back together, and I'll be back in a minute. Here goes the bearing on. Hopefully I got enough stuff stacked up on here. We'll find out, won't we? No, not quite. That's okay. So I grabbed a different tube here and we got the bearing pushed the rest of the way down. Now we're going to push the retainer on. But before I do that, we don't want this thing leaking at all. So we're just behind the bearing here. I'm just going to go put a tiny bit of sealer. Just wipe it on with my finger. Just around there. Just a wisp of it, because it's possible. See, there's the way the spline goes there, there's just very little contact area for that retainer to stop this thing from leaking oil out. And we're going to be using that that universal oil that is a little thinner than the traditional gear oil. Should be okay. Let's see, will this fit in there? Nope. Okay, we're back to our original thing here. That's no good. That's better. You got to stack this stuff up in the right order. Okay. Look at that. If that's not an accident looking for a place to happen, I don't know what is. Okay, once we get it started going, it kind of straightens itself out of it. We just release the pressure and get everything back straight again. And there we go. She goes right on. It's I machined it with like a 2 thou press fit. There. Beautiful. We did it. Now we can put the seal in. Like any seal, it goes with the lip. See the spring-loaded side toward the oil, so it's going to go in this way. I put a wisp of sealer in the bore. These old things, this is the lowest part, literally, of the tractor. And if there's some kind of a little nick or scratch in the bore where this seal goes, remember the thing is 80 years old, right? We don't want a big leak that would make us have to take it all apart again. So we'll just put a little sealant around there. We got the press now. We'll push this thing in and we'll get it installed over the shaft. So we got lots of grease in here. Lots of grease because we don't want to... I've had it happen before where it catches the lip of the seal and actually folds it right around and it comes out the other side. And then, well, you're in a world of poo-poo. But we should be okay. We just slowly tap it straight down. There we go. All right. And now you can feel that the seal, you've got some nice drag there on the seal. So that's groovy. What we got to do now is flip it around and put the snap ring back in. So we'll just walk the snap ring back in. Come on. Nothing ruins your day like taking a snap ring to the forehead. I don't think it's quite in yet. Look at a little punch, coax the snap ring back into the groove. So I just gave it a little tap from the other side and bang, it went in by itself. So now we got to get our gasket. And we'll glue that on with some silicone and get this thing stuck back in. And in she goes. You got to get it right in the... There's a little hole it's got to go in. We'll get it. Okay, well, we got her in. I didn't want to show all the excitement on camera, but there was some persuasion involved in getting it in. Not really. Didn't really have to belt it, but it just needed a little tap. I kept trying to just, glide it in, and it just wouldn't go. And then I finally grabbed a piece of brass, and I went tap, and whoop, in she went. So it's in. That's the main thing. We'll get these bolts run in, torque to 60 foot-pounds. Last thing we got to do is screw the PTO cap on this thing. But I ordered one. It's not here yet. So we'll leave that for now. Anyway, it shouldn't be on really because once we put oil in it and get the thing running, we want to make sure we don't see any leaks coming from there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the 3-point linkage, all that stuff on. It's just nuts and bolts. There's no need to show you that. I'll be back when I'm done. Now we can put the PTO shifter on. I siliconed the gasket to the back of it, and I greased the face of it that touches the tractor. So if we ever had to take it off, hopefully the gasket won't stick to the tractor, because it's a lot easier to take this over to the bench and clean it. All the bolts, the holes go right through. So we'll be putting sealer on the threads as we put them in. I'm going to stick a couple in just to get it started, and then I'll take them out last and put some sealer on. We just got to be careful that the shift arm engages the PTO shift rail there. So before we go reefing up the bolts for keeps, you can feel there, we're pretty sure that that's engaged. So what we'll do is we'll double check, we'll make sure it works. So the PTO is off now. And yeah, there we can see the PTO is off. We can turn the shaft. Now I should be able to, oh, the engine's not running. It might take a little turning and jiggling to get this thing in. Hang on. There we are. I just turned the PTO shaft a little bit to line the splines up, and it went in. And we can see back here, the PTO is turned on. Good. So we can go ahead and tighten those bolts. All right, that'll do it for now. We got this thing all back together. I'll be doing a separate video, I think, on getting this, bringing it to life and getting it adjusted and testing it. That's a whole nother thing for another day. We've done plenty for today, I think. The last thing I want to show you, I was quite shocked that both of the linch pin holders were still there on the lift arms. So we got some new linch pins and some little hunks of chain and got that set up. That's a nice touch on these old things. I think that'll do it for this one, eh? I'm tired, I'm filthy, and I'm starving. I got to go in the house and look after all those things. Not necessarily in that actual order. I hope you got something out of this. I had fun doing it. It was a lot of work, though. A lot of battling with C-pins, and it's been tough on the back end of this thing. But hey, we're there. As far as getting the hydraulics up and running, that'll be another video. I'll show you how to adjust it, how to test it, make sure everything's working how it should, the way Harry Ferguson intended it to work. So with that, I'm going to go. I'd like to thank you as always for tuning into the Claremont Classic Garage. Hope you'll come and see us next time. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long for now.